can start. 11th class, today I'm starting with the next chapter, that is Silk Road by Nick Middleton. This is a chapter which is about a journey. The protagonist of the story, the author, he talks about his journey to Mount Kailash, the hardships, the struggles he faces, the obstacles he overcomes in his journey, clearly depicts his passion and his devotion to perform Kora. Kora is a religious ceremony. It's something very auspicious for the author. Mount Kailash, as we know, is considered as the abode of Lord Shiva in Hindu religion. So, this chapter tells about his journey to Mount Kailash and his devotion, his passion, clearly shows how religious minded the person is. So let's start with the text. Now there are few words, few phrases which are mentioned here. I'm not giving you the meanings of these. I want you to read the text and then search out the meanings according to the textual reference on your own. So let's start.
A flawless half moon floated in a perfect blue sky on the morning we said our goodbyes. Extended banks of cloud like long French loaves glowed pink as the sun emerged to splash the distant mountain tops with a rose-tinted blush. Now that we were leaving Raghu, Lahamo said she wanted to give me a farewell present. One evening I had told her through Daniel that I was heading towards Mount Kailash to complete the Korah, and she had said that I ought I ought to get some warmer clothes. After ducking back into her tent, she emerged carrying one of the long-sleeved sheepskin coats that all the men wore. T-Satan sized me up as we clambered into his car. Yes, he declared. Drogba, sir. We
Okay,
took a
just wait. Keep a pause here. A flawless half moon floated in a perfect blue sky on the morning. We said our goodbyes. Extended banks of cloud like long French loaves glowed pink as the sun emerged to splash the distant mountain tops with a rose-tinted blush. So here we get a view of the weather. The sky was blue and the moon was absolutely, it was half moon was like floating in a perfect blue sky. So the weather was quite pleasant. Now they were leaving for Ravu. Lahamo said she wanted to give me a farewell present. Lahamo, we understand she is somebody who is closely connected to the author. So she wanted to give the author a farewell present. So one evening I told her through Daniel that I was heading towards Mount Kailash. So she was informed through Daniel that the author was going to Mount Kailash to complete the Korah. Korah, as I said, it is like a religious ceremony. And she had said that I ought to get some warmer clothes. Now, going to a mountain, Mount Kailash which is a frozen mountain, absolutely. So she understood that if he's traveling to that point, he need to get some warmer clothes. Simple pullovers or jackets, which according to us, which we feel are very warm, such clothes are absolutely useless if you go to such places where which are covered by snow throughout the year. So at such places, basically, sheepskin or even you will find reindeer skin jackets which are worn, because these animal skin, they protect you from the harsh cold weather. I mean, it actually doesn't allow air to enter into your body. Air pass through that jackets. Air is not able to pass through through this jacket. So she gave the author these long sleeve sheepskin coats, and all the men wore. Tisitin sized up me as we clambered into his car. Ah, yes, he declared, Drogoba, sir. Now, Tricitin is the driver of the car who is accompanying the author here in his journey. Let's continue further. Darshika, is my voice audible? Please continue further. Darshika,
We took a shortcut to get off the Chantang Tenson new and route that would take us southwest, almost directly towards Mount Kailash. It involved crossing several fairly high mountain passes, he said, but no problem, sir. He assured us if there is no snow. What was the likelihood of that? I asked, not knowing, sir, until we get there. From the gently rolling hills of Ravu, the shortcut took us across vast open plains with nothing in them except a few gazelles.
okay, we took a shortcut to get off the Chang Tang. Chang Tang is the name of a valley, Chang Tang Valley, right? So they took a shortcut. Tisitin knew a route that would take us southwest. Tisitin, the driver, knew that way that would bring them to the southwest side, almost directly towards Mount Kailash. Means that route would directly lead towards Mount Kailash. So it involved crossing several fairly high mountain passes. He said, but no problem, sir. He assures us. If there is no sir, what? If there is no snow, what was the likelihood of that? I asked, not knowing, sir, until we get there. So the driver says there is no problem to pass the mountain passes unless and until there is no snow. So the author questions him, what are the chances of snow being there or not? He says, can't say anything because you don't know till the time you reach there. Now, this is something which actually clearly tells us about the weather of the mountain areas. Mountain regions, if you have ever been to any of the hill stations, you will realize that the weather is very unpredictable. Just 5 minutes before, you might see the sun shining very brightly in the sky, and just 5 minutes later you might find that it's very cloudy and dark clouds in the sky, just ready to, the rain may come anytime. So this is something when I say that the weather of these areas, the hilly areas, mountainous regions, it's really very unpredictable. It changes very fast. So he says, can't say till the time we reach that point, then only we'll come to know whether we actually there is snow or not, and do we have any kind of problem or not in crossing that area. Continuing further, just a second, please continue, Karan.
That would look up from nibbling the arid pastures and frown before bounding away into the void. Further on, where the plains became more stony than grassy, a great herd of wild ass came into view. The Satan told us we were approaching them long before they appeared. Kyang, he said, pointing towards a far-off pall of dust. When we drew near, I could see the herd galloping in mass, wheeling and turning in tight formation as if they were practicing maneuuvers on some predetermined course. Plumes of dust billowed into the crisp, clean air.
Okay, so it's again about the path and the weather they are talking about. Further on, where the plains became more stony than grassy. So the plain area was more stony. It was not grassy, means that there were stones everywhere. A great herd of wild ass, a great group, herd, we understand it's a collective noun use. So a great herd of wild ass came into view. Tisitin told us we were approaching them long before they appeared. So he said that we were moving towards them long before. Kyang, he said, pointing towards a far off pall of dust. So he pointed out somewhere and said, that's the place known as Kyang. When we drew near, I could see the herd galloping en masse, wheeling and turning in tight formation as if they were practicing maneuvers on some predetermined course. So maneuvers is basically, you can say like a military action or some action which is जो बहुत ही uniformly कुछ किया जाता है, some kind of action or exercising. It is somewhere referred to as the way the exercising or practice is done by the military people. Both equally, their actions are done very timely. I mean, you will get a feeling as if something very mechanical is going on till the time you reach close and you realize, no, it's human beings practicing their drills or something. So it was, they were walking in a manner as if he was getting the feeling as if they were doing some kind of drill or some predetermined course or something which was already, well planned. Plumes of dust billowed into the crisp, clean air. So plumes of dust billowed. plumes of dust went into the crisp, clean air. So dust was there in the air. Dust was blowing along with the air. Please continue.
As hills started to push up once more from the rocky wilderness, we passed solitary drogpas tending their flocks. Sometimes men, sometimes women. These were wrapped figures would pause and stare at our car, occasionally waving as we passed. When the track took us close to their animals, the sheep would take a precise action, veering away from the speeding vehicle. We passed nomads' dark tents pitched in splendid isolation, usually with a huge black dog, a Tibetan Mastiff, standing guard. These beasts would cock their great big heads when they became aware of our approach and fix us in their sights. As we continued to draw closer, they would explode into action, speeding directly towards us like a bullet from a gun and nearly as fast.
Okay, now this is something very common sights at the mountainous area. When we travel to hill stations or mountainous regions, we generally find these animals. A herd of sheep or a herd of goat moving all together. Then wild asses are there for at times for the transportation of material from the plains to the mountains. They are generally used. So this is something which is very common thing which is found there. We pass nomads dark tents pitched in splendid isolation. Nomads, we understand, it's like somewhat of tribal people who are semi-clad kind of, right? And their dark tents were there, who were like their tents were in completely isolation, because we understand that these are the places, the mountain regions, which are actually isolated from that crowded society, the crowded places, crowded towns or cities or even villages. Not many people can live life there because it's not that easy to survive there. The climatic conditions are harsh. Availability of food or material is not there, or agriculture is not there much. So obviously, where the resources are limited, the population would also be less. So Tibetan Mastiff standing guard, they found a huge black dog there. These beasts would cock their great big heads when they became aware of our approach and fix us in their sights. So generally you will also find the big dogs, kind of somewhat kind of Tibetan dogs, which generally even the military people, they have such kind of dogs which are trained for various operations. So, and they're very alert. These dogs, these animals, they're very vigilant. Just a small disturbance, a small noise also, they wake them up and they're like alert every time with their ears up to just to have a hear what they could or what they could see. So as we continue to draw closer, they would explode into action, speeding directly towards us like a bullet from a gun and nearly as fast. So if a vehicle came in front of these dogs, they would just explode. They would just run at them like a bullet from a gun, right? In that speedily, they would approach them. And these shaggy monsters, blacker than the darkest night, usually wore bright red collars and barked furiously with massive jaws. They were completely fearless of our vehicle, shooting straight into our path, causing Tibetan to brake and swear. So it's about like no the dog, Tibetan, big, huge, monstrous kind of Tibetan dog following the car, because obviously this kind of a dog is, they're very loyal and they're very vigilant. So whenever they find any kind of you know uh, any kind of danger, because a stranger is a danger for, simple as that. So they would follow the vehicle with full speed, and then the driver had to manage the speed and apply the brakes and do everything, right? So let's continue from this one. The dogwood, page number 76.
The dog would make chase for 100 meters or so before easing off, having seen off the property. It was not difficult to understand why ferocious Tibetan Mastiff became popular in China's imperial court as hunting dogs, brought along the Silk Road in ancient times as tribute from Tibet. By now we could see snow-capped mountains gathering on the horizon. We entered a valley where the river was wide and mostly clogged with ice, brilliant white and glinting in the sunshine. The trail hugged its bank, twisting with the meanders as we gradually gained height and the valley side closed in. The
Okay, so
turn
now they could see, just a second, please. Now they could see snow-capped mountains gathering on the horizon. So they could see the snow-capped mountains. If you're traveling towards these kind of mountainous regions, even when you are on the plains, even when you are just traveling on the plains, you realize that you can see the snow covered tips, mountain tips are visible to you. So we entered a valley where the river was white and most clothed with ice. The river was wide in the valley, but it was mostly covered with ice. Brilliant white and glinting in the sunshine, the trail hugged its bank, twisting with the meanders as we gradually gained height and the valley sides closed in. So the valley sides were closed in and twisting meanders as we gradually gained height. So when they reached up, they realized that it was coming down. So this is generally, it happens when you're moving on a path, hills or mountains. You're moving on that circular path where you at times feel that that place is quite far off from you. But when you reach that place and when you cross that place, you find it was actually at a long distance. So that is what about the views, the path, the entire track he is talking about. Let's continue further. The turns became sharper.
The turns became sharper and the ride bumpier. They sit in now in the third gear as we continued to climb. The track moved away from the icy river, laboring through steeper slopes that supported big rocks dotted with patches.
Karan, please continue.
Right, dotted with patches or bright orange lichen. Beneath the rocks, hunks of snow clung on in the near permanent shade. I felt the pressure building up in my ears, held my nose, snorted, and cleared them. We struggled round around tight bend, and Tisitan stopped. He had opened his door and jumped out of his seat before I realized what was going on. Snow, said Daniel as he too excited the wheel, letting in a breath of cold air as he did so.
Now the turns became sharper and the ride bumpier. Now the ride was bumpier. I mean, the car was not moving, the vehicle was not moving softly, smoothly on the road. Tisitan now in a third gear as we continued to climb. Now they were using the third gear and they were somewhere climbing. The track moved away from the icy river, laboring through steeper slopes that spotted big rocks and daubed with patches of bright orange lichen. Beneath the rocks, hunks of snow. So you can actually, this is somewhere, a lot of imagery, I would say, there, where you can visualize what kind of environment it would be. They're in the valley, heading towards a mountain. It's suddenly the vehicle has started giving that bumpy ride because of the uneven path. Actually, now it was that the driver, which he indicated earlier, that there are many mountain passes on this road, but there is no problem till the time there is snow. Now he realized that when he entered into the path, that there was snow all over. So there was a river which was almost half covered with ice, right? And there were rocks, hunks of snow clinging on it near permanent shade. So I felt the pressure. So the author felt the pressure building up in my ears, held my nose. As you go high, I mean, the altitude increases, so your ears, you're not able to hear, right? This generally it also happens when you travel by air. ये normally आपने air traveling में भी notice किया होगा कि कान बंद हो जाते हैं, right? So because they were also going high in altitude, climbing हो रही थी तो वो ऊपर चढ़ रहे थे, so now he could that feel that pressure in his ear and held my nose. He snorted and cleared them. We struggled round another tight bend and Tessiton stopped. Now the Tessiton stopped the vehicle. He had opened his door and jumped out of his seat before I realized what was going on. Snow. So Tessiton had jumped out of his seat. He stopped the car and he jumped out of the seat. And then the author realized that it was snow. And Daniel, as he too excited the vehicle, letting in a breath of cold air as he did so. So he also excited the vehicle, letting in a breath of cold air as he did so. So he allowed that air to come in because uh, at times it becomes difficult to breathe when you're going up. When the altitude increases, breathing also becomes a problem. You might have seen many mountaineers, they need to carry that oxygen cylinders because the level of oxygen goes down. So please continue from this. A swath of white stuff.
A swath of white stuff lay across the track in front of us, stretching for maybe 15 meters before it petered out and the dirt trail reappeared. The snow continued on either side of us, smoothing an abrupt bank on the upslope side. The bank was too steep for a vehicle to scale, so there was no way around the snow patch. I joined Daniel as Tyson stepped onto the encrusted snow and began to slither and slide forward, stamping his foot from time to time to ascertain how sturdy it was. I looked at my wristwatch. We were at 5,210 meters above sea level. The snow didn't too deep to me, but the danger was not its depth. Daniel said, so much as its icy top layer. If we slip off, the car could turn over, he suggested. As we saw Tisitan grab handful of dirt and fling them across the frozen surface. We both pitched in and when the snow was spread with the soil. Daniel both pitched in. Daniel and I stay out to the vehicle to lighten Tisitan's load. He backed up and drove towards the dirty snow, eased the car onto its icy surface, and slowly drove in its length without apparent difficulty.
Now, this is one of the major problem in the places where there is a lot of snowfall is there. Traveling on snow, the major difficulty is that you never know how thick the snow is. At the outset, it may appear to you that it's maybe just a meter or two, but actually, when it's too deep and beneath there might be water, then it becomes dangerous, right? So they were predicting, they were assuming that perhaps the thickness of the snow might be quite a lot what it appears to be. And then the vehicle, obviously, when it's there, the car was moving on snow, so it could not move properly on snow. That bumpy ride, rather, the car was not moving at all. So first of all, the three of them, they had to get down, and they were sliding. They were not able to walk because the entire lane was covered, the entire path was covered with snow. The vehicle was stuck there in the snow. And then Tristan, the driver who was driving the car, the load, he could not carry the load because the car was already, it was not able to move on that snowy path, on that icy path. So the narrator as well